Hello and welcome to the Field Engineer channel. This time I will be interviewing Jerry Varvaro. Jerry has been with the Field Engineer Group for a few years now, and he has extensive experience leading customer support organizations in different regions of the world, including field service. And now he's at Sartorius supporting the bioprocess systems in the US, Puerto Rico, and Canada since 2003. Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you very much, Guy. It's nice to meet you, and a pleasure to be here. So, yeah, excited for this.
Yeah, likewise. So maybe Jerry can start by telling us a little bit about yourself, your choice of field of studies and career.
Yeah, so I started in 1984, actually. Prior to that, I was going to college, City University of New York for liberal arts. And then I was sitting in the student union one day, and one of my friends came in a nice suit. And I'm like, what happened? He goes, I got this job as a field engineer and I got this brand new company car and it's really exciting. It's very cool. I get to go out inside and do all this problem solving. So I went and changed my study to like electronic technology and electrical engineering. Um, and yeah, so I started with a company called NCR, which some people would know, National Cash Register. And I was working um, in a service center to start, and then eventually, very quickly became a systems engineer, doing like Unix support, desktop support. So it was very much like an IT background. And then eventually, I did go back for technological management at New York University of Institute of Technology later on. But yeah, it was just kind of, it made sense in the early 80s, right? That,
Mhm.
with the propagation of the computers and data processing, this was going to be, the it field, right? The thing to do. And I had always enjoyed, you know, uh, mechanical things, just understanding how things work, solving problems. So it just became a very exciting way to put that passion to use in a career, not knowing where it would lead to. And I'll tell you a funny story. I got hired with another guy. So I went out into this industrial park and I saw the NCR corporate. So I went in and I signed the application. When I came back, there were two of us sitting in orientation, and there were two managers sitting outside the orientation room. One guy gets picked and he goes to manufacturing. I got
Wow.
picked and I go to service. So at that moment, fate flipped a coin
Exactly.
and I'm a
And
service
yours
guy.
was decided.
Yeah, exactly.
That's quite interesting. And I do remember NCR. Our
Yeah.
generation knows a lot of companies that don't exist anymore now. So tell me, what inspires you daily and makes this job fulfilling for you?
Well, analytical aptitude, problem solving, with complex devices, which also translates to the business side, so you go from an engineer solving problems, trying to understand the situation, and then that translates to just the strategic implementations that we have here and running the business on a daily basis. And the gratification you get from appreciation, even early on as a systems engineer, when you walk a customer through something, right? And they're like, oh, they have that, aha moment when
Right.
you solve their problems, and and it's that always feels good. And it was very gratifying, and I used to look forward to coming to work on, even on a Sunday night. I remembered, the next project I had assigned to me. I couldn't wait to get at it because I had ideas I wanted to use to try to solve the problem. But then you move into a management realm, and it's the reward of building a team and a culture. So it's a different kind of,
Right.
ecosystem that I live in than I used to when I was a systems engineer. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I know exactly how it feels, and it gives you the opportunity to share your experiences and help your team benefit from it, right?
Hmm.
Um, how do you see your career evolution? I mean, from systems engineer and supervisor now to head of service. So you're probably responsible for different areas of service, not only field service. It's a nice career track, and I'm sure many service engineers, many field engineers have same kind of ambition. So what can you tell them to guide them a little bit through such a career evolution?
Well, part of it is the gratification that you find as a direct contributor versus a manager. So I'm blessed that I have a great team of managers, and we've grown quite a bit over the last few years. So now I'm managing teams not only in North America but now Latin America. So I'm managing Brazil, Argentina, Mexico,
Uh-huh.
and just in North America alone, there's 200 people on my team. So it becomes, a microcosm of an entire business. So within service, you have the operational people, then you have the technical support. I have service contract sales. I have a back office, contract administration, spare parts specialist, logistics. Even though we're part of a multinational company, service itself becomes the microcosm of an entire business unit, with a P&L and L and everything else. So it's really exciting. The experience you have as a senior service manager is priceless because you're acting like a general manager in a lot of ways. Um, but I also would say to the field engineer, uh, when you transition to manager, and all of our managers, I don't even remember now, 25 different managers running around in the various teams. All of them were promoted from within. These are fantastic guys, a lot of them, and girls. A lot of them were field service engineers at one point, most of them. And the biggest hurdle they face is transitioning to a more abstract gratification. So the tendency for a regional manager who's managing a team in, let's say, the Boston area, to jump up and grab his tools and run out in the field to help one of his guys, but then he's not managing the rest of the territory and the other guys, right? So
Right.
you have to break that desire to have your hands on. And yeah, you were the top field engineer in the region at one point. Now you're the manager, but now you have to kind of step back and look at kind of a more abstract gratification. And that's kind of the biggest transition point we see for all the new managers is realizing they can do more good as a manager than jumping into a field service call, but it's that comfort zone, right?
Right. And becomes like how people see you. And when you move to management, people still see you as the field engineer who was repairing. And this is where you need to break the mold and become the manager and work with the same team now as a manager. And uh, it's a lot to learn, definitely. But I think with the mentorship and coaching of a manager, they can overcome the challenges and learn how to become managers. So there's work to be done for sure.
Mm.
Um, what do you consider the most important traits for managing support teams, especially field teams and more specifically remote teams? I mean, your role is quite large for the region. How is it for you managing remotely?
So one of the biggest things you need to remember is, the individual acting alone in the field. Our guys and girls are out there with their hands on the equipment in front of the customer by themselves. And the power of the organization around them, right, is not always present for them, right? So they're always going to wind up in a situation where you may not know exactly what to do next. However, communication and transparency.
Mhm.
This is my absolute key to success because we have very deep quarterly business reviews, uh, annual meetings. Everybody in the organization is welcome to knock on my door. My engineers, they say, hey, you have 5 minutes for a Teams call, or you mentioned something the other day. Can we talk about it? I'll spend hours on the phone with anybody. And I think the more you equip people with information and transparency into what we're doing and why we're doing it, they become empowered and they feel more comfortable because they understand more of what they're doing. You can't put somebody and say, here's your instructions, just do this. No, and understanding what they're going through. Like during the pandemic, my heart was, you know, breaking every day, knowing, my team was in the field. Day one when we had all the shutdowns, these people are facing such tremendous challenges to keep our customers up and running. But the other thing is not only having the empathy for the situation they're in as a remote team member, but leveraging the power and the unique insights they have. So through this communication, this bi-directional communication, we learn from them what we're doing right and doing wrong from their perspective.
Mhm.
And this is the basis of our strategy evolution. in service, is using the power of the workshops we conduct with the engineers and everybody on the team to build a strategy. So everybody's invested in it, you know?
Right. And to tap more into this, for sure, these people that are on your team have talents, have skills. Which specific ones do you look for in support teams? And what are the competencies that make an excellent service and support engineers?
Well, obviously the ability to work independently, you know, so people that can work independently and are self-starters can manage their day themselves and, you know, can focus on the tasks. But it's an extremely diverse landscape we operate in this role. The equipment is highly customized in some cases, so it puts a high emphasis on technical knowledge and skill. But beyond that, you also have to have the customer focus and team orientation. You know, the attitude of the individual also is important. So we always look, you know, we talk to people about their technical backgrounds, but we want to understand them as individuals, how they react to their management team in their current role, how they react to coworkers, how they handle disagreements. You know, can they negotiate this, you know, through a situation rather than, you know, taking a hard stance. And the other thing that's important, and I've seen this on the field engineer message boards over the years, is, you know, and I try to tell my managers, you're looking for an engineer that worked on this thing that we make. They don't exist except here, right? So when you're looking for an engineer, the technical qualifications, the customer service skills, they're portable, right? So once you have that
Yes,
basis of skills, you know, the product training, that's what we offer, that we can give them that specific product training. So make sure you can cast a wide net, because a skilled and experienced field engineer, you know, is so invaluable, and they can adapt to the different products because the base technology is the same, you know, whether it's electronics, pneumatics, or
right,
whatever it is, right? So this
right.
is a thing, yeah.
And then if we talk about medical devices, it's a huge world. If we talk about balances, if we talk about lab analyzers, if we talk
Mm.
about diagnostic imaging, and as you said, so this is where you cannot necessarily have someone who worked on that equipment before, but someone who is open to learn and who has those soft skills to be able to manage his small world of business and his customers.
And that is a great point, Guy. I just want to say that, you know, we've had people come in who are very open, and sometimes people come in, oh, I've been doing it this way for 25 years, and that's the way I do it, you know, so they right
Right.
away they shut themselves off. But, you know, the skills are there, right? So just be open, like you said, to learn, and with the right foundation, they can do anything really.
True. What do you consider as the most satisfying and the most challenging parts of managing a team, and how do you maintain work-life balance? You know, we know in our field, the day doesn't end at 5 o'clock, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. So for me, it's gratifying to see our strategy play out. You know, we created the strategy using the feedback from our team. Everybody has a hand in it. So when we put together some concepts of a new team we're developing within service, or new workflows, right? When we see that work, when I see that work, this I know is the team acting together to enable the strategy, and that's where I'm getting my gratification. Um, but as the team has grown over the years, in particular in our industry through the pandemic, we were seeing growth rates that were through the roof, right? You know, through because of the demand for the equipment we make. Um, it's it's remaining accessible and connected to the team. You know, if you're managing 10 or 15 people, then you're managing 200. It's so hard to maintain those personal relationships, right? And that's critical to me, right? It's knowing my people and having them know me. Um, and also managing in a more virtual landscape. You know, since the pandemic, we've adopted certain ways of meeting,
Mhm.
and we have to go back a little bit to what we were doing in the past, where we had the chance to meet in person. And we try to do this with regional meetings, and to bring people together, especially when they're in the field. Um, but I would say with work-life balance, you know, it's you have to know when to shut off, right? You have to have time for yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't do a good job for your team. So, you know, you have to trust your team. You know, the world is
Mhm.
not going to come to an end if you take one less email or one less meeting sometimes, right? But we think that we think we always have to be online, right? But
Right.
it's a slippery slope, you know.
Yeah, and the emails have become so
Oh,
common that it's impossible to reach zero at the end of the day.
oh my
As you
God,
said,
yeah,
it's a matter of trusting your teams,
yeah.
and you work with them, you build that teamwork, and it's supposed to work well. Looking back at your career, would you do anything differently?
You know, it's interesting. It kind of is a segue from the previous question. So for me, maybe I would have focused a little bit more on my own development as an
Hmm.
individual. Because when you become a manager, you take on responsibility. You know, and as I said before, maybe taking on one less meeting or one less trip, you know, being home a little bit more, knowing that when I do take time away from the business, that the team is so good, the managers are so well prepared and so good that they got it, and they tell me that, hey boss, we got it, just go, we'll call you if we need you, and to
Right.
let go like that a little bit. But you do have a responsibility to each and every one of them. These are their careers, these are their lives that they support their family with. So the problem is, you always have that sense of responsibility. I think if you don't have that, you shouldn't be a manager, right? To know that you're managing human beings, and you need to create a stable environment for them and help them succeed, because just like you as an individual, you want that same support from your management team. You need to provide that. So, but where to draw that line, it's
Right.
like I said, I think I would have taken a little bit. Maybe I gave my family suffered a little too much at times. Is maybe
Mm,
what I'm saying. At this
okay.
looking back.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, looking at the different levels in a service organization, starting in the field, your life is in the field and you work long hours, it's all operational. And the higher up you go, it becomes more strategic. And people reporting to you, like you say, regional managers maybe, or head of departments, they want to take on the challenges. All they need is your support and your empowerment, right? And this is how a team succeeds, where everybody knows what their roles and responsibilities are.
Hmm.
Looking at career advancement, what advice would you give to field engineers who are early in their careers?
Good question. And I've seen people make some mistakes here. So one
Mm,
thing is challenge yourself, right? Don't be afraid to fail. We have a saying around here: fail fast, correct fast, right? Nobody's going to be upset because you took a smart chance or a smart risk, right? But some engineers, maybe they get comfortable with equipment and they don't want to do anything else. And then what happens is, as that equipment family ages over time, their value to the company starts to go down because they've now limited themselves, right? So come on, don't be afraid, challenge yourself. And the other thing too is, don't chase distant goals, all right? To be recognized, to do well. What I did in my career is I focused on what I was doing at the time and did it the best I could. And I did everything I could to improve not just what I did on a daily basis, but my environment, my workflows. And I've seen too many people say, well, I'm worrying about what's next. I said, yeah, but
mhm,
you're not worrying about what you're doing. And
right.
that's what people would judge you on. So just slow down a little bit, right? And do that thing, and you'll be given opportunities that way. Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
Truly well said. Um, and what recommendations would you have for those who want to advance to management? I mean, we talked a bit about maybe rookies who are new to the job and want to, learn and become more specialists. What about those who aspire to manage teams? What can you say to them to help them maybe uh, prepare themselves for something like that?
Yeah, so I think we touched on it a little bit before, but the biggest hurdle I'm constantly seeing with all my newer managers is to be able to disconnect and transition from direct contributor. You always have that, I know how to fix that, I know how to solve that
Mhm.
problem, but you need to enable people to solve problems. You can't be the one solving the problems. This also leads to burnout. When you're trying to manage the business, but you're also getting deep involved in all these different issues from a technical side, you can't burn the candle on both ends. So really, it's to start to let that go a little bit and look holistically at your team and developing your team. As I said, we're a microcosm of an entire business, right?
Right.
So you can apply the analytical problem solving skills that, engineers, you look at something, you can see right through it. You look at a device or something, you always want to understand how it works. It's the same thing with the business. Be curious about now the business, the financials, right? How these things work. Because when you combine operational knowledge and technical knowledge into a management role, when you start looking at numbers, right, we're not just accountants and bean counters, right? You can see trends, you can paint pictures with that
Hmm.
data, right? So it's really just a transition. It's the same person inside. Yeah. It's just, redirecting those skills that made you a successful engineer to now a successful manager and never letting your head get too big. And I tell people, it's like, I don't do anything around here. I'm just a navigator. And when I stood up in front of my team at our annual meeting, I said, you all made this successful. Everything we've done that's worked well, it's because of you. All I did was help navigate, but you're the ones that make it happen. And always remember to be humble as a manager. I think people will appreciate that.
I totally agree. And at the same time, you answered my next question about coaching engineers and how that can be successful. I see that your advice is very sound. It comes from knowledge and experience, and your team is lucky to have a head of service of your caliber. And I thank you for the time and experience you shared with us today. Any last words, anything you would like to mention before we wrap up?
No, I think, that last question was interesting too. It's, coaching and just be prepared to be coached. Preparation is critical. Um, Being honest with yourself as an engineer, if you have knowledge gaps, it's okay to ask for help or clarification instead of, no, I got this. Okay, it's good to be that guy, but you also need to know that there's quite a bit of information to learn and to absorb. Um, so the key is creating an environment for the employees to have that feedback mechanism. It's okay to say, yeah,
Right.
I'm not really sure about this. Tell me more, right? So you want to have the engineer being open, prepared, but still open to feel that they can ask questions or say when they don't feel comfortable, so they can be successful. Take notes, retain the information. Um, but I think this is critical because it's so difficult once you're out on the field, in front of a customer, in front of equipment on your own, you're it at that point, so you
Right.
come you with what you brung, so the preparation is critical, right? But also knowing you have people you can count on somewhere else, that's our job, is to make sure that they know that they have people to count on. So, but yeah, I mean, other than that, Guy, it's such a pleasure to meet you and to talk with you about these things. It was real fun for me to discuss these topics.
Likewise, thank you, Jerry. I look forward to other talks. Actually, to our subscribers, I just want to mention that we'll continue to post monthly such talks as promised, and maybe even more than once monthly. So please continue to follow this channel by subscribing to it, and don't hesitate to submit your suggestions in the field engineer community for specific topics that you'd like us to discover or to cover and to discuss. So see you later on the next interview and discussion talks. Thank you again, Jerry.
Thank you, Guy.
Take care.